it's a done deal. Joao Felix to go to Atletico Madrid for a massive amount of money. Benfica confirming it's 126 million euros, which would make him the fourth most expensive signing in the history of the game. Let's not forget, Sid, this is a player who is only 19 years of age. Is this a massive gamble for Atleti or a massive coup?
Well, look, I mean, I suppose in a way you can look at it as both. The way the market is moving, the speed with which the market is moving suggests that while this looks absolutely enormous, it could well be that in 4 or 5 years' time, it looks like money very well spent. That said, it's a huge shift from Atletico Madrid's point of view. Bear in mind that this makes him the most expensive player Atletico have ever signed by 56 million euros. Wow. You know, it absolutely smashes their record. It doesn't just beat it. And it was very interesting. A couple of days after Antoine Griezmann said he was going to leave, Diego Simeone was asked, what kind of player do you need to replace Antoine Griezmann? And he said, well, someone who plays in what he referred to as three quarters, in other words, in that space behind the forward, someone who scores us 20 goals a season, and someone who doesn't cost very much. Well, he's got himself that player. Except that he's cost an awful lot of money. Now, Atletico Madrid will believe that if they can develop him, he will become well worth it. That said, and we've talked about this a lot before, in this Atletico Madrid side under Simeone, strikers and creative players, and particularly physically quite light creative players, have tended to find it quite difficult.
Sid, let me ask you a question. So, I would think the general assumption in La Liga is that there's only two teams that expect to win the league, and that's Barcelona and Real Madrid. Yeah. But if Atletico Madrid are going out and spending 126 million on a player, do they believe that they can win the league, or are they going to end up in a situation where they can spend that amount of money but still, even themselves, not expect to win the league?
Yeah, no, I think they can find themselves in a position where they can spend that kind of money and not expect to win the league. Simeone always talks, he never talks about it in terms of titles. He always talks about it in terms of growth and competition and all those kind of words that enable you to kind of escape any sense of obligation to win. Obviously, the context of this is that both Barcelona and Real Madrid are going to spend very, very heavily. Madrid already have, and Barcelona, of course, will do. The other part of the context of this, of course, is the amount of money coming in to Atletico Madrid. You know, Griezmann will be going. He's already announced that. That will get them 120 million. Rodri's departure will get them 70 million. The departure of Lucas Hernandez gets them 70 million. They've spent 40 million on Marcos Llorente, which seems like a lot of money, but then I suppose it's totally dwarfed by this. So they will spend a lot of money, but it's happened in part because they've been forced to. You know, this is a season in which 5 key players are departing. Simeone himself said the other day that he thinks this may well be the most difficult, I think the phrase he used was the most complicated project we've had since I've been here. And he knows that he has to restructure this team and probably as well give it a new identity, which does then pose questions about how Joao Felix fits in, how well he can play. But you're right. In theory, at least, you spend this kind of money, you should be expected to win the league. Simeone, I don't think for one moment will ever publicly say, this means we can win the league. Not once.
19-year-old Shaq, 126 million euros.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've kind of given up trying to make sense of the transfer market, particularly over the last couple of years, and the values that clubs put on players nowadays. But the truth is, strikers always command a bit of a premium. Young talent, equally so. And from an Atletico Madrid perspective, they've had some success with young strikers coming through and then going on and making healthy profits. You look at Torres, who's come through the academy. Diego Costa arrived at a similar age. Antoine Griezmann a little bit older when he first went to Atletico Madrid. So maybe it's a gamble that they see worth taking. And if they can get Joao Felix to somehow fit into this system, I think Diego Simeone and certainly Atletico Madrid are the club to make him into a world star.
He's the fourth most expensive signing ever.
You know, if he was going to Madrid or Barcelona, I would suggest that would be easier for him. But he's going to a team that pretty much generally are thought of as not an attacking side. They're more of a, you know, they keep it solid and then they'll try and break on teams. This guy's used to playing in a team that is the best team in the league, and he can just go where he wants and do what he wants. So, as a 19-year-old, to go into a side that is kind of opposite of what you've been used to, how's he going to get round that? How's his head going to get round that?
Stevie brings up a good point, Sid.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen this with Atletico Madrid in terms of the way that players fit into the team. And, you know, a few days ago on the show, we reeled off that list of, I think it was 10 strikers since Diego Costa left the club the first time that Atletico Madrid have signed, of which only one was an unqualified success, and that was Antoine Griezmann. But there's also this process that we've seen played out a few times over the last 3 or 4 years, where Atletico Madrid have signed players that theoretically give them creativity, whether it's wide men or whether it's number 10s. And there's been this kind of false start. There's been this kind of, right, let's try and evolve into something a bit more creative or a bit more expansive. And then there's been a moment in which they thought, actually, no, this isn't really us. And they've kind of evolved back again. And I think that does ask questions about this. Because of the number of players that have departed, maybe there's a bigger obligation than ever before to do something different. So maybe in that sense, Joao Felix can help to lead that. But it's a lot of pressure to put on him, and it's a lot of responsibility to put on him. And it may well be that deep down, Simeone doesn't quite feel that. And it's curious in a way, isn't it, that by completely revolutionising Atletico Madrid, by making them much bigger, much better than they were ever before, what Simeone's done in a way is also make it more difficult to carry on doing what he always did, in terms of that narrative of we're the underdogs, in terms of playing style that says we play like the underdogs. There becomes kind of an obligation to do something different. And I must confess, I wonder if deep down, at some level, Simeone doesn't truly buy into that. And I think that makes things quite difficult for Atletico.
For more, sign up now for ESPN Plus.